Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our Benny's Bat section for Monday, July 18th. As most of you guys know, what we like to do here in the Benny's Bat section is we take a look at each pitcher that's on the mound, try to figure out what their weaknesses are, and then try to figure out which bat's profile to do to get best against them. We have an 11-game slate here for Monday night, a couple good pitchers on the mound. There is a Coors game as well, a couple gas cans. So let's get right into it and figure out how we want to attack the slate. First game we're going to talk about, Baltimore against the New York Yankees. Kevin Gausman on the mound for Baltimore. Young right-hander, 25 years old, has a little bit of a reverse splits thing going on. Right-handed bats actually have a higher average against them, hitting 285 over the last 2 years with 23 home runs and 100 at-bats, so about 1 home run every 5 innings pitched. Looking at this Yankees team, though, I'm not really sure which right-handed bats are the guys we want to attack them with. I mean, do you use a guy like Didi Gregorius, who's been pretty hot, probably one of their better hitters from the right side lately? Starlin Castro a little bit further on down in the lineup. Carlos Beltran, probably the best hitter that they have. He's going to be from the left side as a switch hitter. 354 WOBA, 206 ISO against right-handed pitching. Had a couple hits last night against David Price. So he's probably the best bat here, but again, not really somebody I love. Brett Gardner's another guy you could look at. 6 of 16 lifetime with a home run against Gausman. You look at the Yankees, they faced Gausman quite a few times since they're in the same division. They have very bad BVP against them. A lot of guys, 3 of 18, 4 of 24, 3 of, 26. I just really don't think that this Yankees team is in a really good spot here against Gausman. So I don't love Gausman. He does have a little bit of strikeout upside, though. But I just can't really find a lot of Yankee bats that profile to do well against them. On the other side of this game, we got Ivan Nova on the mound. Left-handed bats actually have a higher average against them the last couple of years. Right-handed bats have hit him well, too, in 2016. So a guy like Chris Davis makes a lot of sense. 390 WOBA, 316 ISO, 9 of 32 lifetime with 3 home runs against Nova. So he's definitely somebody to look at. Machado usually does well in righty-on-righty matchups. 383 WOBA, 239 ISO. But he's only 4 of 22 lifetime against Ivan Nova. So those aren't really numbers that give me a lot of faith in him. A couple other guys I like too, though. Jonathan Scope, 377 WOBA, 239 ISO, 3 of 7 lifetime against Nova. So limited at-bats, but he profiles well, and he has hit him well in those limited at-bats. Also, Mark Trumbo, probably one of my favorite sneaky plays today. Trumbo is 10 of 19 lifetime against Nova with 3 home runs. So here's a guy that's hitting a home run about every 6 at-bats against Nova and has over a 500 average against them already in his lifetime. So Trumbo, definitely somebody I want in there. I think he'll go low owned today. You get him in the righty-on-righty matchup. He makes a lot of sense for me. Next game, we can talk about Miami against Philly. Jose Fernandez on the mound for Miami. And let's face it, the guy's been a stud. 2.52 ERA, 1.02 whip, 154 strikeouts in 107 innings. I mean, there's not much to dislike about him here. The only question I really have with Fernandez today is he going to be worth the price? You're paying almost $14K for him today on DraftKings, $13,800. He is going up against a bad offense, but at 13.8, I mean, you're going to need 8 innings and 13 strikeouts with, 1 run or less and, 4 or 5 base runners maximum. Is Fernandez capable of doing that? Yes, he definitely is. Does he have probably the highest floor of any pitcher today? Absolutely. So for me, that says that he's definitely a cash game play and somebody that I think is going to be really highly owned in tournaments. I think you probably want to try to find a different way in tournaments, although in cash games, I definitely think he's a good option. On the other side of that game, we got Aaron Nola pitching. Solid start to 2016 for Nola, but he's been pretty bad lately. In 4 of his last 5 starts, he scored 1 DraftKings point or less. He had 11 DraftKings points in his last start. He had 1.5 starts back. And then the 3 starts in the middle of that have all been negative numbers for him. He does have a high K percentage. He does have a high ground ball rate. He does allow very few home runs. So those are all things that we like out of pitchers. But lately, he just hasn't been all that good. And I don't think he's in line for a win today because he is going up against Fernandez. You probably want to look at some of the left-handed bats against him. Derek Dietrich, Christian Yelich, both 370-plus WOBA guys. I think they're both, guys that you can consider. You got a guy like Stanton who's been on a power surge lately. So WOBA 355, even against righties, he's raised it up too. Just absolutely bashing home runs in the home run derby. And even before the home run derby against the New York Mets, he had his own personal home run derby. I think he hit 4 of them in 2 games. So Stanton, definitely somebody else I think you can look at. And then Martin Prado is 3 for 6 lifetime against Aaron Nola. So he's somebody else that you can use to round out a stack. Next game is the New York Mets against the Chicago Cubs. John Lester's on the mound. And Lester's had a pretty solid season. 3.01 ERA, 1.08 WHIP, 108 strikeouts, 110 innings. And the problem I have is the last two starts before the break, he got lit up. He pitched against Pittsburgh in his last start. 3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 runs, 4 hits, 3 walks, 5 runs, gave up 2 home runs. The game before that, he pitched against the Mets, who he faces today, only went 1.1 innings, gave up 9 hits, gave up 8 runs, gave up 3 home runs. And that means he's now given up 8 home runs in his last 4 starts. He's only given up 16 on the season. So half of the home runs he's given up have come in his last 4 starts. Hopefully the All-Star break gave him a chance to kind of get right. But he is the best pitcher on the Cubs, and he didn't pitch until, the 4th game for them after the All-Star break. So I'm a little worried here today. I think there could be a chance that, something might be wrong with Lester. I definitely want to take a wait-and-see approach with him. Looking at the Mets, there's really 2 guys that I look at. Wilmer Flores is my favorite bat. Both him and Reyes are both available as third baseman, and I think Flores is the much better play. Against left-handed pitching since last season, he's got a 400 WOBA, 287 ISO score. He's been bashing home runs against lefties the last couple weeks as well. So I think Lester is, going to have some trouble today with a guy like Wilmer Flores. The other guy I'm looking at, Cespedes did have a little bit of an injury scare before the break, but it seems like he's okay now. He's back in the lineup. 372 WOBA, 247 ISO score since the beginning of last season against left-handed pitching. Really like him as well. Think he's another guy that we have to consider. On the other side of this game, we got Steven Matz pitching. Right-handed bats have been the way to go after Matz. 257 average, only giving up 9 home runs in 73 innings. So that's about 1 every 8 innings. That's, nothing that I'm really going to be concerned with. He is tough on left-handed batters, so I'm not looking at many of the lefties on the Cubs. But some of these righties are in a pretty good spot, and they did kind of knock him around a little bit in the only other time he faced them this year. Javier Baez, probably my favorite play. He's been leading off lately. 443 WOBA, 241 ISO against left-handed pitching. So I love Baez today. Chris Bryant, another guy, hits righties well. Both of these guys homered off of Mats in their first matchup this year. Bryant, 384 WOBA, 267 ISO against left-handed pitching. So he's somebody else to look at. Ben Zobrist, 383 WOBA against lefties. He's another guy I think you can take a look at. And then the rookie, Wilson Contreras, who they, whether he's catching or in the outfield, he's hitting in the middle of a very powerful order with a lot of guys that get on base in front of him. So I think Contreras is another guy who's going to be in play here today, especially where he's still cheap. Next game, we can talk about Atlanta against Cincinnati. Matt Whistler on the mound for Atlanta. Very high fly ball rate for him, which is not going to work out well in this ballpark in Cincinnati, which is, a very home run friendly kind of ballpark. Left-handed bats have done better against them the last 2 years. They hit about 320 against them last year, hitting about 280 against them this year, giving up about a home run every 5 innings pitched as well. So left-handers definitely the way you want to attack them. Like we said, especially with that high fly ball rate, you really want to look for the home run hitters. So a guy like Joey Votto makes a lot of sense to me. 410 WOBA, 244 ISO. He's got some home run upside against the righty. Adam Duvall, even in righty-on-righty matchups, 347 WOBA, huge 312 ISO score. And we saw this guy's power all season long. He was in the home run derby as well. Another guy that just can absolutely crush the ball. So I don't hate Duvall here. And then the other home run hitter they have is Jay Bruce. 333 WOBA, which isn't great, but the 253 ISO score, it underlies the kind of power that this guy has as well. So against a pitcher like Whistler in a good home run hitter's ballpark, I think you really want to look for the Reds that have some power, and those are the 3 I'd be looking at. On the other side of this game, you got the lefty, Brendan Finnegan. Right-handed bats have 17 home runs against them in 77 innings pitched. The problem is there aren't really a lot of right-handed bats on this Braves team. They're pretty bad against left-handed pitching. They do have a pretty lefty-heavy lineup, although they have been a little bit better lately. Left-handed bats against Finnegan are hitting 256, so it's not like he's lighting, shutting them down. But they do have a low fly ball and a low home run rate, so I'm not sure if they're going to light him up either. Freeman is the best bat they have, even in lefty-on-lefty situations. He's a 350 WOBA guy. Your hope here is that he gets a hit or two against the lefty early in the game, and then you get into that horrible Reds bullpen that has a lot of right-handed pitchers in it, and maybe Freeman can hit a home run in the 6th or 7th inning if he gets 2 at-bats against the bullpen. Tyler Flowers would be an upside play that I'd look at here at catcher, but with him being on the DL, you're probably going to get another lefty and A.J. Pierzynski catching today, which only makes this lineup a little weaker. As a matter of fact, I think the best right-handed bats that they have, looking at guys like Chase Darno and Jeff Francoeur, not really anything that I'm all that scared of. If you're looking for some flyers, I guess you can take those guys, but I'm not looking to have any Atlanta guys in my tournament teams or on my cash game teams today. Next game we can look at Minnesota against Detroit. You got Ricky Nolesko pitching for Minnesota. Right-handed pitcher. Right-handed bats actually have a higher average against them the last 2 years and a slightly higher fly ball rate. He does have a little bit of an elevated fly ball rate. It's not huge, but he does give up a few more fly balls than ground balls. You know, the thing is, this Detroit team has seen him quite a bit, and they all have pretty good numbers against him. You look at a guy like Miguel Cabrera, 403 WOBA, 212 ISO, 5 of 16 lifetime against Nolasco. Ian Kinsler, 9 of 23 lifetime against him. V-Mart, 7 of 14. Castellanos, 4 of 14 with 2 home runs. Maben, 5 of 7. Upton, 7 of 20. I mean, you got 5 or 6 guys there with, you know, between 300 and 500 batting averages against him lifetime. So I really don't think this is a good spot at all for Nolasco. I think you can stack up Detroit. I think the biggest problem you have with stacking Detroit today is figuring out who you want to include and who you want to leave out. And like I said, all these guys are in pretty good spots. So I think, you know, the top 5 or 6 of the order all should be able to get a couple hits against them. And I think the Tigers do put up some runs against Minnesota today. The other side of this game, we got the lefty, young lefty Matt Boyd pitching. Right-handed bats, higher average, higher fly ball rate, more home runs. It's a very right-handed heavy Twins lineup. So I do think it's going to be a tough spot here for Boyd. Couple guys I'm looking at, Miguel Sano, 400 WOBA, 267 ISO, probably their best bat, their best power bat. You're looking at Brian Dozier, who's hitting cleanup, 364 WOBA, 254 ISO against left-handed pitching. So he's somebody else I think you can consider at second base. Maybe even an Eduardo Nunez at shortstop, having a great season this year. You know, the numbers don't jump off the page at you, but he's been very, very good this year, hitting at the top of that lineup. You know, if he gets on in front of guys like Sano and Dozier, they should be able to drive him in. So those are the 3 guys that I'm really looking at here on Minnesota. Next game we can talk about is Cleveland against Kansas City. You got Corey Kluber on the mound for Cleveland right now. Left-handed bats 221, right-handed bats 211 against them this year. You know, high K rate, low home run rate. Definitely like Kluber, 11,900. I think it's a pretty solid price for him. You know, the only bat that I'm really a little bit concerned about on Kansas City right now with all the injuries they have is kind of Eric Hosmer, and his numbers have been down a little lately. He still has a 371 WOBA, 175 ISO since the start of 2015 against right-handed pitching. He's 12 of 47 lifetime, so not exactly great numbers, like a 260 average, does have 3 home runs in those 47 at-bats, so about 1 every 16 at-bats. Again, just not really all that great. You look at this KC team, because they're in the same division, they have a lot of at-bats against Kluber, but nobody really has good numbers. I mean, Hosmer's numbers are probably the best, and he's the guy that profiles the best, but even he doesn't look like he's in a good spot. So I do think it's a pretty decent space here for Kluber. He's even getting a little bit of a park bump going to Kansas City, which is a pretty good pitcher's park. The other side of this game, you got Edison Volquez. Right-handed bats, a little bit of a reverse splits guy, 290 average. Not a lot of home runs, though. He has a high fly ball rate the last couple of years. I'm sorry, a high ground ball rate the last couple of years. Very low fly ball rate, very low home runs allowed. You know, Kipnis is really the only guy that I'd be looking at here, even though he's a lefty. 385 WOBA, 195 ISO against right-handed pitching, and 7 of 19 lifetime with a home run against Volquez. You look at the rest of this Cleveland team, nobody really stands out. It's a bad hitter's park. They don't have good BVP against Volquez and quite a few matchups that they have against them. I just really don't see this as a great spot for the Cleveland Bats, although that offense has been absolutely on fire lately. Next game, we can talk about San Diego at St. Louis. Mike Leake on the mound for St. Louis. Left-handed bats do a tad better against them, but Leake is a guy that gets a ton of ground balls. So I don't see this San Diego team that doesn't hit right-handed pitching very well really putting up a good game against them. I'm not sure if I want to use Leake because Leake is not really a high strikeout guy, so I don't think that he's going to give you big upside. But I really don't see any San Diego bats that I'm like jumping to put in my lineup. If you want to go with a guy like maybe a Jankowski, if he's leading off, you're doing it more for hoping that he gets on base once or twice and gets a stolen base and maybe scores a run. But again, even that to me is a little bit of a stretch. You know, I think Leake is actually in a pretty decent spot here today. You know, like I said, I don't know how much upside he has, but I think he's solid if you want to throw him in a cash game. I think he's going to get you, 18 to 20 points in this game, which for his price is okay. The other side of this game, Christian Frederick is pitching, left-handed pitcher for San Diego. I don't really know how to look at him. I mean, his average, he's in his last 5 games, he's basically averaged giving up about 6 hits, 5 runs, and a home run in every one of those games. So I do think that this Cardinals team is going to hit him. They don't crushed left-handed pitching, but they do have a lot more righties in the lineup lately. Steven Piscotty, easily my favorite bat, 420 WOBA, 232 ISO, where he's cheap. I think he's cheap on FanDuel today again. Definitely somebody I want to look at. Holiday and Peralta, good right-handed hitting veterans that hit left-handed pitching well their whole career. And then if you get a guy like Greg Garcia hitting up at the top of the order, Carpenter is out for a little while on the DL. If you get Garcia hitting up in the order, he's been great against left-handed pitching so far in his limited at-bats. So he'd be another guy that I think would be sneaky. Could be a solid salary saver for you, where he's cheap, the sites that he's cheap on, especially if he's hitting up there towards the top of the order. Next game we can talk about, one that I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of exposure to, Tampa Bay at Colorado in Coors Field. You got Drew Smyly on the mound for Tampa Bay. Now, people love Smyly because he has a high strikeout rate, but he's also been getting lit up. I mean, he's given up 25 runs in his last 4 starts. He's given up 40 runs in his last 7 starts. I mean, this is a guy that is just getting knocked around right now. 5.47 ERA this year. Right-handed bats, much higher average, more home runs. He has a huge fly ball rate to both right and left-handed bats. That's why he's been giving up so many home runs. I don't like the lefties on Colorado against left-handed pitching. Blackman I would take over Cargo. Cargo I want nothing to do with today. The right-handed bats are the way I want to go. Trevor Story has been crushing left-handed pitching. 380 WOBA, 275 ISO, especially at home in Coors Field. He's somebody I definitely want some exposure to. I know he's pricey, but hey, anytime there's a game in Coors Field, everybody on both sides is going to be a little pricey. So, Story is a guy I think I'm going to be paying up for in spots here today. Arenado, probably my favorite play. He's the best right-handed bat they have. I know his numbers are better in righty-on-righty spots, but he can hit left-handed pitching. 351 WOBA, 212 ISO score, kind of underlies the power that this guy has. So Arenado and Story, probably my 2 favorite bats from the Colorado side of this game. Now, Tampa Bay is an interesting spot here. Tyler Anderson, the left-handed pitcher, is going up against them today. Right-handed bats are hitting 294 against them, but Anderson is a ground ball pitcher. He's somebody that doesn't give up a lot of fly balls. Tampa Bay is a team that does hit left-handed pitching well, but they usually do it for power. They're usually a team that's hitting a lot of home runs. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works out today. They do have a lot of guys that do well against left-handed pitching, though. I mean, Forsythe, 414 WOBA, 298 ISO. Brandon Guyer, 398 WOBA, 208 ISO. Evan Longoria, 385 WOBA, 218 ISO. Even a guy like Steven Souza is somebody you can look at as well. So I do think there's a lot of guys in this Tampa Bay team. All those right-handed bats against left-handed pitching. Tampa's been hitting right-handed. Tampa's right-handed bats have been hitting left-handed all season. So I do think that these guys are going to play, especially in Coors Field. Now, remember, you're not. These are all. It's a Coors Field game with a high total, and this is a team that does hit left-handed pitching well. So they do fit. They do make some sense to you. Talk about is Houston at Oakland. Kendall Graveman on the mound for Oakland. His last start was against Houston. He actually pitched really well. 8 innings, 5 hits, only 2 earned runs. But, I mean, for most of the season, he hasn't pitched anywhere near that good. Left-handed bats have a much higher average against them, although right-handed bats have been okay. My favorite was Correa. The other guys like Springer and Altuve hit left-handed pitching much better, but Correa as a righty actually hits right-handed pitching better than Altuve and Springer do. 367 WOBA, 224 since the start of 2015. Other than that, I think I'd rather have some of the left-handed bats. I would, but he's like 4,700 on up against a weak pitcher. He's got the splits with the lefty righty, but I can't pay 4,700 for Colby Rasmus. So on DraftKings, I just can't do it today. If you want to use guys like Albreda or Castro, the other left-handed bats, I probably won't do it, but they are the other. Well, Graveman's not really a great pitcher, although this game is in Oakland, so it's definitely a park downgrade for this Houston offense. The other side of this game, Houston's throwing Mikey Fires. Right-handed bats do high home run rate. I think Chris Davis, Chris with a K Davis, is in the righty-on-righty matchup, so definitely somebody I want to look at. And Stephen Vogt, they both hit right. Are guys that are going to be in play here as well. I'm not loving this Oakland offense here today. They have too much exposure in my lineups. Next game, we talk about Texas at the